Sadhu. Namo dassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo dassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo dassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Sat, sat, sat. Okay, hello everyone. We are here again for our Sunday Sutta readings, our weekly Sunday Sutta readings, and we are still on the Sabbasava Sutta, which is the second sutta of the Majjhima Nikaya, a very important sutta because it describes how we can cut off these influxes called the asavas, which are the influxes of sense desire, karma asava, the influx of craving for existence, bhava asava, and the influx of ignorance, avidya asava. And it is through cutting off these asavas that we can experience nibbana, that we can see nibbana. So this sutta was going through 7 methods of how to abandon these asavas. So we went through in the previous weeks with the abandoning by seeing, then abandoning by restraining, then abandoning by using, abandoning by enduring, abandoning by avoiding, and last week we talked about abandoning by removing. So today we will be talking about, I would say, the most important and the most final of these methods, which is abandoning by developing. By cultivating is another word we can use, because the Buddhist path is all about cultivating good qualities. So we talked about avoiding, removing, but cultivating is something that we have to do every day, which is why we meditate, which is why we practice sila and dana, is for cultivating these good things. So I will start reading from Bhikkhu Bodhi's translation, starting from verse number 21. Taints to be abandoned by developing. What taints bhikkhus should be abandoned by developing? Here, a bhikkhu, reflecting wisely, develops the mindfulness enlightenment factor, which is supported by seclusion, dispassion, and cessation, and ripens in relinquishment. He develops the investigation of states in enlightenment factor, the energy enlightenment factor, the rapture enlightenment factor, the tranquility enlightenment factor, the concentration enlightenment factor, the equanimity enlightenment factor, which is supported by seclusion, dispassion, and cessation, and ripens in relinquishment. So, what I just read through are the 7 enlightenment factors. They are called the Bojjhanga Dhammas. The Bojjhanga Dhammas are called enlightenment factors because they lead to enlightenment. They take us on one path, and that is towards enlightenment. So the mindfulness enlightenment factor is called the Sati Sambojjhanga, and investigation of states enlightenment factor is called the Dhamma Vichaya Bojjhanga, and the energy enlightenment factor is called the Virya Sambojjhanga, rapture Piti Sambojjhanga, tranquility Passaddhi Sambojjhanga, and concentration is Samadhi Sambojjhanga. So again we go back to the theme of cultivating, of developing. So what we are doing in our meditation is we are trying to cultivate these enlightenment factors, and the only way to do that is through the satipatthana, the chattaro satipatthana, the 4 mindfulness foundations, as is translated here in this book. It's The contemplation of the body, kaya anupassana, the contemplation of sensations or feelings, vedana anupassana, the the contemplation of mindfulness of chittas, is like consciousness, the mind, and dhammas. Dhammas is dhammanupassana, which is the contemplation of phenomena, dhammas. And one of these phenomena is the enlightenment factors, the bojjhangas. So when we practice our meditation, if you do it properly, the Buddhist vipassana practice and the samatha practice, what we are doing is we are slowly developing these enlightenment factors. And it's not done by thinking, I want to increase my sati sabbonjanga today. We These things automatically happen the more we do it, because if we meditate every day, slowly these enlightenment factors sort of bloom, they sort of grow out, and when they reach fruition, when they reach the finality, that's when we can attain nibbana. So the way it's done, the simile that the Lord Buddha used, he used this simile once, was the way a carpenter's adze handle would be polished. So I don't know if anyone knows what an adze is. It's a tool that carpenters used to smooth out planks of wood from a rough sort of unwaving thing to a nice and smooth plank. So when you start off with a handle of even an adze or an axe, it can be quite rough. You can get splinters in your hand. It can be it's not really nice and polished like you can buy from B&Q nowadays. So with use, they wear out and they get really shiny, and you can't really say how it's happening, because every day when you use this axe, you don't see a difference from the day before. But after a long time, when you look at it, you realize it looks polished. And that's the way sort of meditation works, in this really silent sort of underground, almost un you can't really see the way the progress of meditation takes place very obviously. Sometimes we think that we are not making any progress whatsoever, but you need to know that slowly and slowly these things add up. And every time you meditate, even if it's just for 10 minutes, even if you're only mindful of one breath, that counts, that registers, because it slowly adds up to the enlightenment factors. And so in this way, when it starts very simply, like satipatthana starts with the breathing, just knowing the in breath and just knowing the out breath. And it sounds really ridiculous that you can go all the way to the nibbana maybe just by knowing you're breathing in and breathing out. That's because it's just slowly adding up to our sati sabbojjhanga and all the rest. So when you're looking at the Dhamma Vichaya Sabbojjhanga, is sort of it's like knowing the arising, the passing away. So it's knowing the tilakkana, so that is the anicca, the impermanence, because you see the arising and passing away, and the anatta, which is the non-self, which happens when you sort of look at it from an objective perspective at the breath or at any phenomena. You sort of intuitively come across this knowledge that this is not self. And also dukkha, which is the unsatisfactoriness, the suffering nature of clinging to these things that are not self and not permanent. And that's the Dhamma Vichaya. And the energy enlightenment factor, the Virya, is the energy we apply towards doing things, towards being mindful, being diligent. Being diligent is very important in meditation. So we are slowly developing that. And likewise, rapture is piti, is that really nice electric feeling we get in our body sometimes when one is meditating. And likewise, the tranquility is the coolness, the sort of on a very hot day having an ice cream, that kind of way it cools down the body. But without ice cream, through meditation, that's passaddhi. And concentration, which is the I think you all know what concentration is. And equanimity is the perfect balanced mind, the perfectly equilibrium, like in a state of perfect acceptance of good and bad, not running away, not running towards. And When we meditate, every single second that we meditate, every single minute, even if it's just a millisecond, we add to this. We add to this, and that's why it's called tends to be abandoned by developing. And sort of to understand this concept of how we develop these things, it would be really help us to understand a little bit of the deeper philosophy. And I don't know, I don't have enough knowledge to go into deep detail, and we don't have enough time. But a way we can understand how these things add up is if we look at what we really are. And according to the Buddhist doctrine, according to the Theravada doctrine, we and all living beings, all of existence, is all of existing beings is nama rupa. So that's nama is mentality and rupa is materiality. So materiality can be described as the four elements and so forth, just the materiality, matter. And mentality, nama, is chittas and chetasikas. Chittas is consciousness, it is the knowing of an object. And chetasikas are mental factors. So they are the ones that arise along with the chittas. So these things, they arise and then they pass away, and then they arise and then they pass away. So that is existence, that is the continual stream of existence. So none of these so-called these consciousness and mental factors, they occur together, and they are called a chittupada. These things, they do not last a long time. They are not like a really long string. They are more like little dots, and we cannot see close, so we see it as one string. That's why we believe in things like souls and this is mine, this is me forever, because we can't see these little dots. And like for an example, let's say how this works is you're listening to this talk right now. Your attention is on this talk, so your attention is on this monk with this voice looking like this. And that is the chitta, that is the knowing of the object, that is the screen, that is me. And surrounding this are the chetasikas. So whatever feelings that arise, whatever knowledges that arise within you, so anything that is attached to the object. So whatever you feel when you whatever there is the chetasikas. And then this suddenly switches, I don't know, to an object like dinner, so you suddenly think of dinner. So the next chitta is the taking the object of dinner, and around this arises sort of wanting, greedy, tasting, wanting to, and these things surrounding those are the chetasikas. I'm trying to simplify a very complex theory, and it's not quite clear. But anyway, what you need to understand is there is a continuum. There's a continuum, and these are made of the chittas and the chetasikas. And so these enlightenment factors are chetasikas. They are mental factors that arise along with the knowing of an object. And when we practice meditation, we are making these mental factors stronger. We are slowly feeding them. So maybe sati, mindfulness, might start off very weak in our practice. But when we practice meditation, we are slowly giving it nutrition. We are making it stronger. We are making it stronger and stronger and stronger. And one day it will be established in our mind. And that's sati sambojjhanga. And when it is established in our mind, we can remain mindful all the time, which is like an arahant is. And likewise, the Dhamma Vichaya Bojjhanga, the investigation of Dhammas, investigation of states, that we can fill up as well with our Satipatthana. Slowly, slowly, we will be strengthening these mental factors. And that's how meditation works. So if you are sort of really frustrated with your practice, you're feeling like nothing is happening, I'm not progressing, why am I not getting a jhana or something like this, it's because these things, they happen sort of out of sight, out of sound, out of sight. They're slowly strengthening, and over time they add up and they add up and they culminate in nibbana, If not, they will culminate in a way you will understand over time when you look back, because these things happen very subtle, in a very subtle way. This strengthening of the mental factors, of the wholesome mental factors of investigation, of virya, of energy, of sati, and so on. Um, so that's how the enlightenment factors work in our minds when we meditate. So don't worry about the theory. I just wanted to sort of maybe give you a little inside view of how things work in our meditation. But you don't need to worry about the theory. Just look at the practice and make sure you're practicing the right way. Make sure that you're not doing it for the wrong reasons, or you have a right teacher with you, and you're practicing diligently. And as long as you do this, don't worry about the theory, don't worry about anything. It just happens. And if you want to learn about the theory, I'm not going to discourage it either. That's quite a good thing to do. It's quite interesting, quite enlightening, and could help you as well. um, but if you don't want to, you don't have to. Just keep practicing. While taints, vexation, and fever might arise in one who does not develop these enlightenment factors, there are no taints, vexation, or fever in one who develops them. These are called the taints that should be abandoned by developing. Developing or cultivation, that is what bhavana means. Bhavana is the Pali word for meditation, but it's translated as meditation in English, but it actually means developing, it actually means cultivating. And then we will come to the conclusion. Bhikkhus. When for a bhikkhu, the taints that should be abandoned by seeing have been abandoned by seeing. So that's the first method. And that is what I mentioned previously about the last method. That is the developing this the sati, developing satipatthana, developing meditation, vipassana, being able to see. When the taints that should be abandoned by restraining, so that's going back to I think 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, when we were talking about sangvara, indriya sangvara, restraining our senses, have been abandoned by restraining. When the taints that should be abandoned by using have been abandoned by using. So that was the third method, when we talked about how we use our requisites as monks and how you can do it as a lay person, considering wisely, reflecting wisely, paying attention wisely, closely, not getting carried away with things. When the taints that should be abandoned by enduring have been abandoned by enduring. So that's the fourth method. I've lost count now. That's when we can put up with things we don't like, such as bad weather and sicknesses and abusive words and things like this, and how we can fight the asavas by just enduring through these things. When the taints that should be abandoned by avoiding have been abandoned by avoiding. When the taints that should be abandoned by removing have been abandoned by removing. That's what we talked about last week. When the taints that should be abandoned by developing have been abandoned by developing. Then he is called a bhikkhu who dwells restrained, with the restraint of all the taints. He has severed craving, flung off the fetters, and the complete penetration of conceit. He has made an end to suffering. So that's showing us how we can arrive at this end of suffering, at nibbana. Is by seeing, is by avoiding, it's by restraining, it's by removing, and it's by developing. And that is the essence of the Buddhist path. Every single one of the Noble Eightfold Path, every spoke of that wheel is considered, is about one of these methods, all of them in some cases. Um, so everything we do as Buddhists, through giving dana, through keeping our sila, through meditating, is on order to cut off these asavas, in order to penetrate the conceit of I am, and in order to cut off all these influxes and reach a state of perfect happiness, of freedom from any suffering. I will read the footnote for the last one before we sign off. Okay. Number 50. The conceit at the most subtle level is the conceit I am, which lingers in the mental continuum until the attainment of arahantship. So the mental continuum is what we considered before, the nama and rupa dhammas arising and passing away, arising and passing away, this stream of consciousness, this stream of the mind, the stream of life, and how we look at this mental continuum and we call it mind, and we call it we put a soul in it and things like this delusion. Then the penetration of conceit, mana bhisamaya, means seeing through conceit and abandoning it, which are both accomplished simultaneously by the path of arahantship. The bhikkhu has made an end of suffering, in the sense that he has put an end to the suffering of the round of samsara, vata dukkha. So that's the conclusion. We can see that ultimately everything we do will lead us, if we do it properly, towards enlightenment. We just need to put in the time, we just need to put in the effort, and have faith in the process, and have faith in our own abilities to reach Nibbana. Not to think that this is something only for monks or nuns who have left everything behind. It is easier for us to do because we have more time for meditation, and our whole life is designed in order to practice these getting rid of the asavas, getting rid of the influxes, like we went through before. But even lay people, you can do this, because as you can see, it's all about developing, right? Slowly, little by little, with every action we take, with every word we speak, and every thought we have, if you do it properly, if you do it for a wholesome reason, it leads invariably towards the end of suffering, because it's adding up slowly. So don't be discouraged by the practice. Don't be discouraged if it seems too hard or too harsh, that I can never practice like a monk can or a nun can. Every little counts, and you just need to keep doing it. And one day, you might, you definitely will reach the final goal, as long as you stay with it. So, with that, gotta read the last bit. That is what the Blessed One said. The bhikkhus were satisfied and delighted in the Blessed One's words. So that is in contrast to the ending of the first sutta, where the bhikkhus were not delighted. If you remember, it's because when Buddha spoke some really bitter truths to these bhikkhus who are full of conceit, who are full of I think they were very proud of their knowledge or something, and Buddha broke it down. But in this case, the bhikkhus were very happy to hear this, and that is how most of the suttas end, the bhikkhus being very happy to listen to these words of the Buddha, because it would help them in their practice, it would help them in their meditation, and they would maybe then go off to their kutis, to their forest, and meditate on this sutta and use these knowledges to improve, to gain enlightenment. That's usually how the suttas goes. It's quite nice. So I hope that you feel that same happiness having learned about this sutta. And if my explanation is not clear, I do apologize for that. I hope there were no misunderstandings caused through the interpretations that I have brought up. If there are any such complaints, criticisms, or questions, please direct them to, I guess, the YouTube comments, and see what we can do. And you can also go and read these suttas for yourself, and that's why I wanted to, well, I was told to do this, but I'm doing it in the hopes that you may yourselves learn how to read the suttas, how to interpret them, how to enjoy reading it, and how to use it. Most importantly, in your daily lives, in your practice. And next week we will start with the sutta number 3, called the Dhammadaya Sutta, Ehas in Dhamma, which is a very important sutta for Buddhists to know. So, with that, I will leave you and good luck in your practice. Thank you very much for listening. Sadhu Sopatveva